Before the spotlight hits your soul, God cloaks you in silence. Can you hear it? Divine One. Have you ever felt like the whole world is sleeping on you while your spirit is wide awake? Let me tell you about Elijah. Yeah, the fiery prophet. After calling down fire from heaven and proving God's power to the doubters, you'd think he'd be living loud, right? Instead, God tucked him away in a cave. Silence, loneliness, crickets. But guess what? That cave became the womb of revelation. In the stillness, he didn't hear thunder, earthquakes, or fire. He heard a still, small voice, the voice that would prepare him for greater impact. Divine One. You're not being overlooked. You're being over-prepared. Before heaven rolls out your red carpet, you must learn to dance in the dark. Why does silence feel so suffocating when it's actually sacred? Why do the chosen ones often feel hidden just before they're revealed? The quieter you become, the more you can hear. Ram Dass Divines, watch this video till the end, because what feels like a pause is actually a divine setup. If you're feeling unseen, misunderstood, or muted, you're in the most powerful phase of your spiritual ascension. This silence is God's strategy. Let's break it down. Point 1. Silence is the sanctuary of Revelation Divines. Silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. In today's world, chaos is the soundtrack of our lives. Constant notifications pinging, social media turning into an endless cycle of comparison, and conversations feeling like competitions for attention. We've been conditioned to crave the noise, to believe that if we're not constantly engaged, we're irrelevant. The truth is, this constant buzz around us creates an illusion, one that suggests we must be in the spotlight to matter. But here's where the wisdom lies. While the world clamors, God whispers. His voice doesn't fight for attention, it waits for us to step away from the noise to hear it. Reflect for a moment on the great spiritual moments in history. They didn't unfold amidst grandeur or applause. Instead, they took place in solitude, in places where stillness reigned. Moses, for instance, didn't encounter divine guidance in the hustle of Egypt's royal court, but in the barren silence of the wilderness. It was in the quiet before a burning bush that he heard God's voice. Why? Because the wilderness isn't just a desolate space, it's a sacred one. It detoxes the soul from the distractions of daily life. It's not a place of abandonment, but a divine preparation. When life draws you away from the spotlight, it's not a sign of rejection, but a sign of nurturing. You're not being overlooked, you're being shaped. Here's the profound irony. The silence we fear is precisely where God meets us. In today's world, solitude is often feared and misunderstood. Yet, modern psychology has proven that isolation can enhance self-awareness and emotional clarity. When we quiet the mind, our brains begin to process deeper truths. Practices like meditation, which might seem like doing nothing, have been shown to increase creativity, emotional intelligence, and even improve health. Silence isn't a void. It's a space filled with wisdom, waiting to be discovered. But despite these benefits, many of us resist the quiet. Why? Because we fear what we might hear when the noise fades. That's exactly why God speaks in the silence. He knows that the noise isn't just external, but internal. It's our minds cluttered with distractions that need to be calmed before divine revelation can unfold. God wants to help us break free from our mental traffic jams, soften our hearts, and set our spirits on fire with purpose. So when the phone stops ringing, when the friends go quiet, when it feels like life has unplugged itself from you, don't panic. You're not being abandoned or ghosted by the universe. You're being invited into a deeper connection with the Creator. God isn't ghosting you. He's texting your soul through silence. And trust me, those divine texts are never mistyped. They deliver the truths you need, even when you didn't know you were ready for them. Point 2, being hidden is holy. You ever seen a diamond being cut in the middle of a loud, crowded street? Of course not, because precious work requires privacy. Diamonds, the hardest natural substance on earth, don't get their brilliance from being left alone. They're placed under intense pressure and cut with microscopic precision, often in silence, behind closed doors, by masters who understand the importance of focus. That's exactly how God works with you, divines. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's sacred ground. It's not loneliness. It's holiness. When everything in your life feels like it's slowed down, quieted, or even paused, it's not because you've been forgotten, it's because God is carving something eternal inside you. He's not crafting you for the world's applause, He's shaping you for heaven's assignment. Silence is where the Spirit does surgery. In that stillness, God gently shaves off the ego that no longer serves you. He trims away pride that once protected you but now blocks your blessings. He molds your character with the patience of an artist, not a crowd pleaser. If people saw you too soon, before the refining was done, they might misunderstand your value. Worse, you might start performing for their applause instead of showing up for your divine assignment. And let's be real, applause fades, but purpose lasts. It fuels your soul on the days no one's watching and clapping. It drives you when the stage is empty and your name isn't trending. Here's the truth, and it's not always comforting, but it's real. God hides His most valuable creations while He works. Just like a sculptor covers their unfinished masterpiece, not because it's broken, but because it's becoming. If you've been feeling hidden lately, cut off, slowed down, or passed over, it's not punishment, it's preparation. Divine delay is not divine denial. You're not on pause, you're on purpose. And purpose doesn't need a spotlight, it needs obedience, patience, and a little bit of holy silence. So take this spiritual reminder to heart. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean nothing is happening. The pressure you feel, it's proof that you're being shaped. The silence you're sitting in, it's sacred. And the version of you that's emerging, oh, it's going to shine like a diamond that only heaven could cut. Point 3. The isolation is intimacy with God, that feeling of no one gets me. Yeah, that strange ache of invisibility, that slow disconnection from your circle, even your favorite songs sounding like elevator music. It's not random, it's divine. You're not crazy, you're being called. When life starts to go quiet, it's not a punishment, it's a preparation. God's not ghosting you, He's gathering you. See, the spiritual realm doesn't shout, it whispers. And sometimes the only way you'll hear God's whisper is if everything else gets turned down. Relationships that no longer serve your growth begin to fade. Opportunities dry up. You might even lose interest in things that used to light your soul on fire. That's not depression, that's elevation. God is drawing you into a secret place, not to isolate you, but to incubate something inside you. Think of it like spiritual Wi-Fi. He's trying to sync your soul, but you keep stepping into crowded lobbies where the signal drops. So what does He do? He puts you on Do Not Disturb, not because He's ignoring you, but because He's trying to upgrade you. You're running on old patterns, outdated belief systems, and expired versions of yourself. God's not mad, He's just ready to install the new software, and like any good update, you need to sit still and plug in. You wouldn't yank out your phone mid-update, right? Same goes for your spirit. Let Him do the work. Now, here's where it gets funny. God has jokes, but they come wrapped in wisdom. While you're spiraling, thinking, why doesn't anyone text me back? He's like, because I blocked their number. You asked for clarity, didn't you? While you're wondering why your job feels like soul gravel, He's redirecting you to your real assignment. When your Spotify feels like static, and even your go-to comfort snacks stop hitting the same, that's not boredom, it's a divine palate cleanse. He's reorienting your taste toward what nourishes your soul, not just your senses. So no, Earth Angel, you're not being rejected, you're being refined. You're not lonely, you're in a sacred appointment. This is divine intimacy, the kind where God strips away the noise so He can speak identity. It's not abandonment, it's adoption into deeper wisdom. Sit with the silence, it's speaking volumes. Point 4. Fame without foundation is a setup for a fall divines. If heaven dropped the spotlight on you before the silence had a chance to shape you, it wouldn't feel like a blessing, it would feel like a burden. You'd crash under the weight of your own answered prayer, that viral moment you're dreaming about, that million-view video, the book deal, the global speaking tour, or the ministry platform you crave. It all looks glamorous from the outside. But spiritually and emotionally, those things require muscle, soul muscle. You can't fake the weight of wisdom, and you can't sustain greatness without depth. The silence you're sitting in right now, the obscurity you feel swallowed by, it's not punishment, it's training. It's heaven's version of the gym. Every unseen moment is a rep in the spirit. Every delay is resistance training for your soul. You're being prepared to carry the calling, not collapse beneath it. We live in a generation obsessed with instant fame, but in God's economy, premature promotion can be dangerous. Think about bamboo. It spends years growing underground, developing a root system so vast that when it finally breaks the surface, it grows up to 90 feet in just weeks. If you bypass the root work, you won't survive the growth spurt, that viral success you want. Without the internal infrastructure of character, discipline, humility, and discernment, it will eat you alive. That's why God builds his chosen ones in the dark. Jesus spent 30 quiet years for a 3-year public ministry. David was anointed king, then sent back to the sheep. Joseph was given a dream, then thrown into prison. Why? Because heaven honors the process more than the platform. It's not about denying you, it's about defining you. God's delay isn't a no, it's a not yet, until you're strong enough to hold the miracle with grace and grit. So here's your motivational push, Earth Angel. You weren't born to flash and fade like a cheap firework. You were born to blaze and last like a lighthouse. Anchored, unmoved, and powerful. The silence is your sanctuary, not your sentence. Stay faithful in the shadows, because when your time comes, you won't just rise, you'll reign. You're not being hidden, you're being hardened. And when heaven turns that spotlight on you, you'll shine with the strength of someone who earned the glow. Point 5. Silence is your strategy to hear your own voice. In a world that constantly screams for your attention, silence is often treated like an awkward dinner guest, unwelcome and uncomfortable. But here's the hidden truth. Silence is sacred. It's not a void, it's a portal. When you step away from the noise, your notifications, everyone's opinions, societal expectations, and even that inner voice trained by fear, you step into the most important conversation of your life. Not the one with your boss or your followers or even your friends. It's the one with yourself and the divine. Yes, that voice, the one that whispers wisdom your ego would never admit. The one that doesn't shout, but somehow speaks louder than the chaos. That voice only gets airtime when you shut everything else down. Scientifically, silence boosts brain growth. A 2013 study in the journal Brain Structure and Function found that 2 hours of silence daily could lead to the development of new cells in the hippocampus, the region associated with learning, memory, and emotion. Translation: silence doesn't just feel good, it literally rewires your brain to be stronger and clearer. So when you're sitting in stillness and suddenly feel a spark of clarity or divine insight, that's not just a feeling. That's neurobiology and spirituality teaming up like the ultimate power couple. Spiritually, silence has always been the meeting place of the soul and the divine. In nearly every tradition, Christianity, Buddhism, Sufism, you name it, there's a theme of retreating into silence to receive truth. Moses heard God on a quiet mountain. Jesus withdrew into the wilderness. The Buddha found enlightenment under a silent tree. See the pattern? The sacred doesn't compete for your attention. It waits for you to want to listen. And here's the twist of humor we all need. In silence, you don't find out you're losing your mind. You find out you're finally in touch with it. You're not crazy. You're just called to a higher path, a deeper truth, and a quieter confidence that doesn't need to shout to be heard. That's when you become unstoppable. Not because you have the loudest voice, but because you finally recognize your true one. So go ahead, sit in the silence. Your spirit's been trying to talk to you for years. Point 6. Heaven trusts the quiet one's divines. You think God chooses the loudest to lead? Nah. Let's break this down in a way that's both soul-stirring and truth-filled. In a world obsessed with noise, where everyone's yelling their opinions into the void of social media and volume is often mistaken for value, God is quietly raising leaders from the shadows. Not the ones with the biggest microphones, but the ones who know how to hold their tongue. The ones who can sit in a storm and still hear heaven whisper. These are the ones God trusts, not with crowds, but with consecration. Not with popularity, but with purpose. Silence in this context isn't passive, it's powerful. It's not the absence of sound, it's the presence of depth. It's the training ground of the soul, where restraint is forged like gold in fire. Think about it. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading a nation. Jesus too had 30 quiet years before 3 loud ones. And in those years of stillness, solitude, and secret prayer, they weren't being overlooked. They were being over-prepared. Because real leaders aren't made on stages, they're made in stillness. See, silence teaches you maturity. It teaches you how to carry sacred truths without broadcasting them. It teaches you how to discern what to say and when not to say it. You learn that not every battle is worth a sword swing, and not every opinion needs your voice. That's why the ones who walk into a room and change the atmosphere without uttering a word are the most powerful. They don't demand attention, they command it. Their presence speaks louder than their voice ever could. That's divine confidence. It's not cockiness. It's alignment with something higher than ego. The truth is, the quiet ones often carry the heaviest anointing. They don't waste words because they understand the weight of words. They've been trusted with secrets, with revelations, with the kind of truth that can't be spoken out loud without stirring spiritual warfare. So they speak carefully, prayerfully. When they do speak, it's precise, it's piercing, it's prophetic. As the quote goes, "Don't mistake my silence for weakness. I'm just listening to God louder than the world." And that's the kind of strength this noisy world can't comprehend. Point 7. The silence is the final test before the spotlight. The silence you're experiencing right now is not a punishment. It's the proving ground. It is the sacred space where heaven watches to see how you handle being unseen. When the world seems to have forgotten you, when your efforts go unnoticed and your dreams feel far away, the question is, how do you respond? Do you complain, craving validation from those around you, or do you cultivate the strength to grow quietly, preparing yourself for something greater? It's a pivotal moment, one that can either propel you forward or hold you back. The choice lies in how you spend this time of silence. Think about the story of Jesus. Before he performed miracles, gathered crowds, and ultimately faced his resurrection, he first endured 40 days of fasting and solitude in the wilderness. This was his silence, his moment of being unseen. It wasn't a moment of weakness, but rather a period of deep preparation. The silence was his testing ground, the place where he faced his own inner struggles and strengthened his connection with the divine. And in the end, it was this silence that sharpened his spirit and made him ready for the world-changing work that lay ahead. In the same way, Divine One, you are being tested in your own season of silence. It might seem like nothing is happening on the surface, but beneath it, something incredible is taking place. The silence isn't about being forgotten, it's about being forged. It's in this quiet that you are being shaped, molded and refined into a vessel of power and light. The ones who endure the silence without losing faith, who use this time to deepen their spiritual practice, and who prepare for the calling that's been placed on their life, are the ones who emerge as legends of light. So take this time to nurture your soul. Don't post for pity or seek distractions. Instead, pray for preparation. Because when the silence ends and the world begins to see what you've cultivated in the unseen moments, it will be clear. You weren't forgotten. You were being forged, and when your moment comes, you'll be ready. Divines, before heaven makes you world famous, it humbles you in silence. That's your sacred classroom, your divine boot camp. This isn't rejection, this is resurrection. When you rise, and you will, you won't just make noise, you'll make history. So enjoy the silence, dance in the delay, trust the stillness, because the crown is coming, and you won't need to chase it. It's already being molded to fit the shape of your spirit. Stay awake on your spiritual journey. Share and subscribe if this resonated with you, Divine One, because heaven's about to make you unmistakable.